Hello and welcome to my channel. I am Zodiac Bandit, and today we're going to be recapping episode 103 of Campaign 3 of Critical Role. A ton happened in this one, so let's just get right into it. We start in Rexentrum inside the house of Caleb, Widowgas, and Essek Thalos. Essek is preparing a chance to free Laudna from Delilah for good, and he pulls the party back into his lab as the time is short and they need to get this over with before Delilah can grow her strength back. Essek gets ready and the party get a short rest in this time. Imogen asks if Laudna is nervous, and Laudna says that she's terrified, but happy they have found a way to do this, especially not by Ludness's hands. But she's worried about who she'll be afterwards and if she can even be anyone without Delilah's magic. But she thinks it'll go well and trusts the party to get her through this. Orm asks Essek if there's a way to keep Laudna around after they get rid of Delilah. Essek says that's what he's trying to do. He's trying to bind Delilah to the soul anchor to keep Delilah around and to be used by Laudna instead of the other way around. Essek says there's a chance it doesn't work and either nothing happens or they are both lost. Laudna says that she wants either the best case scenario to happen, which is her gaining control, or they both die, as Delilah returning really isn't a good idea at all. Imogen asks if Laudna can feel her right now, and Laudna says that she's weak and rolls an insight check to see if she's listening to the current conversation, but rolls a 9 so she can't quite tell. She can only feel the thrum of her power within her, and that's all she knows. Essek says that he needs help from any of them who have any expertise in runic magic. Chetney says he can, but Essek actually wants to use his blood expertise for the second step, which was embedding the soul anchor into Laudna. Brea says that he has some arcane knowledge, and Dorian says that he can read primordial, so they're going to try to help for the first step. They inspire each other. Essek sets the anchor on the table and makes his lab instruments float in the air and begin to chisel away at the rune, or begin to chisel runes into the soul anchor. He hands off the chisel to Dorian, and Essek is going to read off the runes in a specific order, and Dorian has to write them down in that order. Dorian makes a dex check to do the follow along properly. Fern casts guidance, which is her sort of entire thing in this. She's guiding everybody through all of it with guidance. He also gets advantage because Breas is helping him. He rolls a 32 with all the help that he got. The DC was 25. It takes about 30 minutes for him to chisel in the correct runes in the correct order, and everyone is silent during this process. Laudna says that this is a lot and they've already done a lot for her. Fern asks why they would stop now, and Imogen begins to comfort Laudna. Dorian looks down at the finished anchor, and Essek tells him that he did excellent work. Essek says that is the first step done, and then he looks at Chetney. Essek asks if Chetney is okay with a lot of gore, and Chetney begins to take his clothes off in excitement, because yes, he is, of course, okay with a lot of gore. Essek brings out a rolling table to act as a makeshift gurney for Laudna, and asks if Laudna still wants to do this. Laudna says it must be done, and he tells her to lay on the table. Chetney gets ready to start the surgery, and Fern casts guidance again just to make sure everything goes well. Laudna asks if she needs to be conscious for this, and Essek says yes, she needs to be present. He grabs a bag filled with alchemical compounds, and the bag has Bernato written on it. Essek pulls out some sort of mulch and says that the soul anchor is going to have to go behind the sternum, and the mulch can go around that area to numb the pain, and Laudna doesn't take it. She says that she normally has dogs leap out of her chest anyway, so she should be fine. But she does ask for something to bite on, and Essek gives her a wooden bookmark, and she bites down on it. Essek says this is the time to look away if the others want to, and he marks the place where Chetney needs to put the soul anchor. Much like before, Essek will be doing the binding ritual portion of it, and Chetney needs to be listening for specific instructions as they go. Chetney asks if Laudna can open her chest and keep it open like when she summons the dog. She summons the dog and her chest bursts open, but then it closes again. Essek asks if she can keep it open, and she pulls her finger down her chest, and much like an autopsy cut in the shape of a Y, her chest opens. So, that's gross. Imogen holds Laudna's hand, and Essek is standing back a bit in pure shock of everything that he's just seen. Too much body horror for Essek, it seems. He gets his instruments again and then pulls up over towards Laudna. Laudna says that she trusts them all to see her through this, and Essek starts muttering an incantation, and the soul anchor begins to glow, and threads begin to come off of it of arcane energy. He grabs a hold of those. Essek then hands Chetney the anchor, and he places it up and into, or inside the sternum, and the threads begin to guide Chetney. Chetney takes some of Laudna's blood and rubs it on the soul anchor and uses a blood maledict on it, and it begins to glow a blue light from the flame within it, or on it. They begin to sew the soul anchor into place. She begins to hear the throne of Delilah ask what she's doing. Laudna says turning the tides. Delilah says that she needs her, and Laudna says that she's absolutely correct. Chetney needs to make a medicine check. He has guidance, so this is where that comes in, and he gets a 20, which was the DC. Chetney feels Laudna's cold bones, but the flame warms them up a bit. Laudna feels the flame as pain at first, but it eventually turns into her recalling what it used to be like to be warm. The arcing threads pull back into a network of webbed runes, and her ribcage and chest begins to close. A dark shadow begins to escape out of Laudna's chest, and Essek keeps the incantation going, but he looks at the others a little bit nervous. Ashen rages, trying to be helpful in this moment. He starts to breathe slowly, and his head turns gray and red. He rolled the probability version of his rage, and he gives Delilah a mark of the messy, which makes anything that attacks them, who's been marked by this, a 18, 19, or 20 become a crit. Matt makes it that so the next step, no matter who does it, if they roll an 18, 19, or 20, it's a crit, and it automatically succeeds. Orm grabs Seedling and goes up to Laudna. She says if it comes to it, he can do it. He says that it won't happen, and he casts Hex on Delilah, and vines grow from his hand over Laudna's shoulder and up towards the shadow. Ashen and Orm roll a wisdom save, or I guess wisdom check, against Delilah. Fern gives guidance yet again. Orm rolls an 18, meaning it's a crit, so it automatically works. Sparks fling off of Ashen, and they turn into a gray mist, kind of like Essek's magic that he used in Aora bunch, and it combines itself with the shadow. Orm's vines meet the shadow and turn into a black, sort of gross-looking vine, locking it in place. They all feel a wave of warmth enter the room. It's very welcoming. Laudna hears a scream from within her head, and Delilah says that she won't be stopped. They see Laudna's eyes begin to flutter. Essek pulls the final thread and closes the book. He says that they're almost done, but he needs to activate the soul anchor. He places his hand over Laudna's chest, and Laudna arches back. Laudna is no longer in the room. She is in darkness, surrounded by blue flames. Delilah grabs her neck and begins to strangle her. Imogen pushes her thoughts into Laudna's mind, and she's back in the dead version of Whitestone that they were in before, when they tried to save Laudna. She sees the sun tree that they sort of burnt asunder and ripped in two, and then she sees Delilah and Laudna. She flies down to Laudna. She comes up behind her and grabs onto Delilah's hand, and says that there's only two ways for this to end. Delilah says that she can't have her. Imogen says that she either goes in the soul anchor or she's gone for good. Delilah says that she's endured worse, and Imogen says this will be her chance to fight for another day. Laudna grabs the hands of Imogen and then looks at Delilah and smiles. She says these years of being her puppet ends today, one way or another. Laudna then casts Void Puppet, and the spirits of those who were on the tree with her that day begin to show up and dig into the back of Delilah, making it look like puppet strings. Charisma check from Imogen, with a guidance, of course, and with advantage from Laudna. She rolls a 21. Laudna watches as 100 more of these threads begin to attach to Delilah. These are every soul that she took in Whitestone, and they start pulling against her. Blue flames burn bright in Delilah's eyes, and she goes to speak, but every single thread pulls at once, pulling her away into the darkness. Essek pushes his hand into Laudna's chest. He finishes the incantation, and then Laudna begins to glow purple. The shadow is cast off. Laudna relaxes, and everyone pulls back. Essek looks for signs of success, and Laudna can feel Delilah, but she's Laudna's now, not the other way around. Laudna can see the angry burning face that's yelling within the soul anchor inside of her. Laudna looks inside of herself and sees Delilah is entirely hers. She summons Pate. It feels a little different. She used to have to borrow this power from Delilah, but now she is taking it, siphoning it for her own. Pate wakes up in her hand and asks where they are. Laudna says that they are now free. Pate then sees Breas and asks who the fuck he is, and Breas asks if that's Delilah and immediately attacks him, killing him instantly because Breas doesn't know how not to hit hard. Imogen grabs Laudna's hands to see if they're still cold. They are still cold, but not as cold as they used to be. Imogen looks to her chest and sees that there is a very slight glow coming from Laudna's chest. She is now Boney Stark. Laudna tries to see if Delilah is hearing, or listening, or seeing through her in any way. Insight, natural 20. Laudna can feel that Delilah can only see what Laudna wants her to see. Laudna, with the help of the rest of the party, has now completely captured her patron. Wild shit. Laudna says that she won't be watching her anymore, and Imogen kisses her. Fern asks if she feels any different. Laudna says that she feels like herself, like a sense of clarity has come over her. The party can see there's some more color in her now. She is still undead, but now, and she's still bound to Delilah, but she is now changed. Laudna feels like she's finally in control, and she thanks them for helping her twice. Imogen says that this one feels a lot better than the last one. Chetney carves C-pop into Laudna's ankle, as he does with all of his best works. Imogen says that they should get some rest now, and Essek agrees, and he falls into a big chair within the room. He says it's not every day to be a part of something like that. Quick question, though, and this is something that I need help recalling. For those who have better memories than me, was he not there in Campaign 2 when they helped Not? Like, I feel like he was there when that whole thing happened, when they helped Not. And I don't want to give any spoilers for anybody who hasn't seen Campaign 2, but just say yes or no, Essek was not there in the comments, I guess, if you're going to answer this question. Anyway, moving on. Orm says that they should celebrate. They don't know what's going to happen later on today, especially after earlier today. They're now in a big city and they just had a big win. Orm asks what Essek thinks about this, and Essek says that now is a good time, if any, and says that he has some of the right stuff for this kind of occasion. He waves his hands and everything that was all over the place in the lab goes back into their proper place. A quick, easy cleanup job. Fucking lucky bastard. Fern asks if he has any friends that he wants to have join. Essek says that they are unfortunately rather busy. Essek gets wine and other sorts of liquor for the party, and they all sit around the dinner table. They toast to finally getting a win, gaining control, and many other things. Brea says it's nice to meet them all. It has only been a few hours since they have met him in the first place. Ashton says that they can play a couple rounds of what the fuck is up with that, and they ask him where he's from. Brea says that he was originally from the Kryn dynasty in Wildmount, and his family eventually moved to the Empire part of Wildmount, but the Hells are his new home. Orm asks how he found his calling, and Brea says that gods reach out to you in your hard times, and that's what happened with his lord. He was told he was meant for more, and this gave him a new purpose and a new goal. Ashton says this wasn't his first god, and as Breas did mention the Platinum Dragon before. Breas says that he was aligned with another. He believes that the name Betrayer God is actually a misnomer, and thinks that the Primes are just as misguided, and he shifted his allegiances because of that. He used to work at a temple for the Platinum Dragon in Zadash, and he was security there, but one day the temple was attacked by a horrible goblin and a nightmarish tiefling. He let them in, they deceived him, and they ruined everything and burned the place down and drew dicks all over the walls. Much like the dicks here in Essek's place. Kind of weird. Breas was blamed for it and was expelled from the church, and he never caught the people who did this. Imogen wonders if the Lord of the Hell sent them, and Breas says that his lord has much more clear motives. These people were just animals. He lost a lot, and his family did as well. Fern asks where his family is, and he says that he doesn't know. They blamed him for this as well, and they don't speak anymore. Orm asks if the Lord of the Hells is some sort of rebound god, and Breas says no, he is the one true god. He showed him that there are those who matter and there are those who don't. The Lord matters, and he shows people purpose through his guidance. Orm asks what a day in the life of Breas used to look like 6 months ago, and Breas says that he was supposed to find followers for his lord, but it's a bit tricky as people are very much against his god. Imogen asks if he is in love with his god or if he just respects him. Breas says that it's more so the respect aspect. Fern says based on what they saw, she's not much of a fan, and Breas feels like they watched something completely different. He saw the Lord of the Hells wanting to bring his family back, but they chose a bunch of mortals over them and then killed all the mortals afterwards. He says they only care for themselves, but his God cares for his entire family. Imogen says that his God lied to them all, so that's kind of a lie. Ashton says that he makes a good point, kind of. Breas thinks that it's very convenient that all the good things that happen just so happen to help the prime deities out. Chetney is excited that he is with them, as they all have the same objective. Breas then lists off his objectives, which is kill Ludinus, save his god, and then use the god hammer to kill the prime deities, which isn't possible because there's no god hammer. The others aren't sure about that last one, but they need as much help as they can get. Orm thinks that this will be tricky with some of their higher-ups. They'll need to talk to some of the people that they have around them. Breas says that he can lie about who he follows to make things easier with all of their allies. Orm says they need to come together to stop Ludinus, as he doesn't have anything good planned. Breas says if they can help him, the gates of hell will open for them and they can all celebrate with him and Fern, because Fern is now going to be eternally locked to that shit. Breas does have a lot of questions for Fern. Laudna wonders why Ludinus hasn't just gone and talked to the gods, as she's heard people doing it in the past. She wonders if they should go talk to them themselves. Orm says they may not have to go far. The Wild Mother was there with them during Laudna's surgery. Breas questions this, and Orm confirms that she was there 20 minutes ago, guiding him and the rest of them through her surgery. Orm thinks that she wanted Laudna back on her feet. Breas says if Orm wants to reach out to the Wild Mother, he can help, but then turns to the rest of them and says that he really can't. Ashton says it's not a secret how he feels about the gods. He's not a very big fan of them. But he can tell however this works out, it's up to the gods. They can either justify themselves, leave, or end. Ashton says it's their turn to explain why they need the gods. Orm says they did leave, and Ashton says that's not enough. Orm says that they caused a lot of pain and suffering and left because of it. They barred themselves away. Breas asks if Dorian hates the gods, as he's made a couple of comments throughout this conversation. Dorian says not hate, but the last time he encountered a god was the Spider Queen, and it didn't go well. Imogen says that actually tracks, so yeah, she's not wrong. Ashton says he doesn't like powerful people choosing their own punishments, and Laudna says that she was endeared by them when they were looking at them. They were looking for a home, and they were a bunch of fuck-ups, and she wonders if they would be willing to try doing that again, but elsewhere. Ashton just wants the gods to ask the people for once. Orm says the gods and Ludinus are completely different topics. Orm says that the uncertainty of Ludinus' plan and the potential destruction that comes with it, he's trying to release, might unlock a new calamity far worse than what the gods did. Imogen doesn't think Ludinus has the right to decide for anyone else, and Dorian asks if the gods do. Ashton says none of them do, but he doesn't trust anyone who asks a complicated question and says there's only two answers to it. Orm says Ludinus has taken many lives. What if one of them was Dorian's brother or his father? Ashton thinks Ludinus is like the gods, choosing punishment for others, and that makes him like them. Chetney wonders what resetting the power structure from zero even looks like. He thinks it'll be absolute chaos and a lot of people will die. Orm says that he believes Ludinus definitely has a second part to this plan, and he doubts he'll let Predathos just leave. Imogen says he was looking for conduits to control Predathos' power. What does he do with that power afterwards? Chetney thinks that he'll hold on to it. Laudna says they also have to think about the races on Ruidus and how they fit into everything. Chetney wonders if they're trying to make way for the Weave Mind to become the leaders down here. Imogen is worried about demons being able to run free, but Essex says that the gods don't totally control that, and there are many portals all over the world outside of their view and outside of their control. So, realistically, that part doesn't matter. Imogen asks what Predathos means to the Luxon, and Essex says that he isn't quite sure, but whatever the Dunamancy source is, it's very much different from the gods, and if Predathos wants the gods, he probably won't want the Luxon. I disagree, they're kind of similar, but whatever. Ashton says to change the pace of things, he has a game that they can all play, and he goes to grab his pipe that sort of shows the greatest moment in your life, but remembers that Laudna has it. She brings it out, and Ashton says that they can roll to see who smokes from it. Essex says that he doesn't partake in smoking, but Chetney explains that the pipe is from a very ancient tree, and he should be, willing to try it. Persuasion check of 19, Essex says that he will engage in the chances, so whatever the die roll becomes. Taliesin rolls a d10. 1 through 9 determines who it is. If it's a 0 or a 10, they re-roll it. He rolls a 5, which just so happens to be Breas. He smokes from the pipe, and the smoke takes shape. It's Breas and a handsome human fighting dark figures. During the fight, the handsome human stabs Breas in the back and holds up the symbol of the Dawnfather. Breas stands back up and smites the man named Stanley. This is all a big joke about his cup, by the way, for those who are curious. He has a Stanley cup that he's got like some sort of demon thing around it, which is actually really cool, but that's why his name's Stanley. Breas uses Stanley's blood to paint the Dawnfather stabbing the back of the Lord of the Hells, and then Breas skins Stanley and prays to Asmodeus to no reply. Dorian asks what Asmodeus thought of the art, and Breas says he probably liked it, but he only speaks to him in affirmations. Imogen asks if he is sure that it's the Lord of the Hells and not someone else. Breas says that he's never spoken to the Lord of Lies, but he is the herald of the Lord of Lies, and he will serve him till he dies. Fern asks how he became the herald without speaking to him, and Breas says through worship, acts of cruelty whenever it's needed. Dorian says as long as he sees visions, then he's connected to him. Breas says that they're more like daydreams or fantasies, not necessarily visions. Dorian says he's seen a lot more direct talks with the gods in the past. Breas says the Lord of Hells is locked in the Hells, and it's hard for him to sort of reach his followers. Ashton says that it might be because he's a god of deception, but who knows. Dorian asks if Breas being a bard is how he shows his devotion, and Breas says yes, his art is how he shows his devotion to his god. Essek asks if he picked up any of his artistic talents in Xhorhas, and asks exactly where he's from. Breas says that he moved when he was very young, so he's not quite sure. Insight check from Imogen, but Breas is way too hard to read as he rolls like a 32 and she rolls an 18. Fern asks if he has a place in the Hells, like a literal home, and Breas says that the Hells are very chaotic, or at least that's what he's been told. To be invited to the Hells is a huge honor, which the rest of them pick up, meaning he hasn't been invited there yet. Dorian cuts this off and asks about the art on the wall. Essek slyly moves a curtain over one of the paintings that are on the wall of his friends, including a blue-skinned tiefling. Essek says his partner commissioned them all. Dorian suggests that Breas does a painting for them, and Breas says that he can do that. He rolls a performance check of 20 and makes a painting for all of them, commemorating this meeting. At first glance, it's kind of scattered and hard to read, but as you focus on the dark spots, a picture is fully formed of the group. Imogen asks if he would ever be willing to sell his work. Breas says no, that his art is for his god, but he asks how much they think he can make for it. The party says a lot. Breas asks if Essek wants it, but Essek thinks that the rest of the party should keep it as it's about them and it doesn't quite fit the decor of the house. The party then finds some sleep and they all heal up. Chetney attunes to the scale mill that they found in Aor, and Laudna and Imogen are the last ones to wake up. I wonder why. Laudna wants to identify the amulet that she found on a skeleton in Aor, and Ashton says that he's proud of her for not wanting to absorb it. Essek casts Identify on the amulet, and it's an amulet of cursed life. If someone is wearing it and casts a 5th level spell or lower by the caster or someone nearby, the spell is absorbed, and once this happens, any dead bodies within 200 feet get up and begin to attack the wearer. It does not require attunement. A good item to have, and they're starting to brew up some plans for it, as some of them start immediately talking about placing it on other people and then casting a lower level spell. Laudna wonders if this is how the person who had it before her died. Orm asks what they should do next, and the party think it's a good idea to talk to their higher-ups. Essek can take them back. Orm pulls out the Sending Stone and tells Caleb that they're at his house with Essek and that they have a lot to talk about, and they're going to be seeing Keyleth soon. Orm also says that Essek is a very good man. A moment passes, and Caleb responds saying that he is very sore and recovering from a long day. He also agrees that Essek is a good man, and tells Orm to not touch any of his stuff. Ashton asks Essek if he wants to take a look at his head before they leave, and Essek would very much like to do that in the lab. The two of them head down, and Ashton explains how he got it. Essek flicks his head, and a dynamic spark goes into it, sending a vibration into Ashton's head. Essek makes arcane threats, much like he did during the surgery, and begins to sort of enter them into Ashton's head. They reflect off the inside of his head multiple times as it goes in. Sort of like when you have two mirrors standing back to back and you're able to like look on infinitely, sort of thing. Essek goes to pull his hand back and to sort of retract all the threads, and it starts to pull back, and as it does, color shoots out of Ashton's head, which pushes Essek into the air, and eventually Essek floats back down. He says that is very new, and he says he's never met a being of living dunamancy before, and Ashton reacts to a way that's to dunamancy in a way that's very exciting. Ashton says that he's happy to know a word for it all now, and feels less and less in control of everything that's happening to him. Essek says it's hard to contain what he doesn't understand. He says dunamancy works in controlled patterns over space and time, or geometric building forces of life. But Ashton is very much havoc within pattern, which is weird. It shouldn't work, but it does. Ashton says that he's been told that he's a hot mess, or just a mess in general, and Essek says that is the best way possible to put it. Ashton asks for a way to study it, and Essek says that there aren't any books to study it, as the Kern Dynasty wanted to sort of keep this a secret, but he offers his time once this is all done, and then he pulls out a small black marble. He says this is a focus for dunamancy, and he can use it when he needs to sort of get control. Ashton thanks him for everything he's done and says that he's sick of not knowing himself and will take up Essek's offer after this is all done. Essek says that it's time to take them all back to Keyleth, and he turns back into his Seth form and teleports them back to the encampment in the Hellcatch Valley. It's night, and they are surrounded by smoke. Buildings have been crumbled, and they see figures moving on the outside of the former encampment. Orm sees an impact crater, and he sees many Vanguard soldiers, Rylorans, and Vidulches, the large insect creatures from Ruidus. Imogen casts sending to Keyleth and asks if she's okay and where she is. Keyleth says that she is okay, many people got out, not everyone but many, and that she is in Vasselheim. At this moment, Gloomglut flies overhead and the party start to be concerned. Orm sees that in the crumbled buildings there are also bodies all over the place, dead bodies. Imogen tells Essek to teleport them to Vasselheim. He casts teleport, someone off in the distance tries to counterspell, but it doesn't work, and they successfully teleport, and it is very cold where they are. Ashton says they weren't gone very long. What the hell happened? The party look around and see above them is a thick nexus point within the ley lines. They are surrounded by pine trees and there is snow on the ground. They can see about 20 feet past the tree line is a very tall wall. They step out of the tree line and see a double gate off in the distance to the side, and there are guards and people in front of the gate. Imogen says that they wanted to speak with the gods, and this is probably the place to do it. Boreas paints over the symbol of the Lord of the Hells and paints it a black sun for the Dawn Father. Laudna says that last time they were here, they came across a town being controlled by the Dawn Father, so they should be on their guard. Imogen casts sending to Keyleth again and tells her that they are now in Vasselheim and asks where she is specifically. She says that she can't speak now, there's a meeting going on, and they should join them in the Platinum Sanctuary. Boreas then paints over the Dawn Father symbol again and changes it to a Platinum Dragon symbol. The party asks Essek what it's like here, and he says that he's actually never been inside the walls, he's only been outside. Boreas says that if anyone asks them any hard questions, they should say that they'll pray on it. The religious people are very simple. They walk to the gate, and they see a line of refugees. The Bastions of Vasselheim are speaking to the refugees, and it seems like they're, choosing who gets to go in or not. There's a strange burning smell in the air. It's weirder and much older than the smell of burning bodies. It's similar to burning bodies, but not quite. Laudna rolls perception check to see if she can tell what it is, and she rolls a 17. It's a smell that she knows well. It's the smell of undead flesh being burnt. The party wonder if there was a undead uprising recently. They need to move in, and they speed up towards the gate. Boreas pushes past a bunch of the refugees, and the Bastions ask who they are. Imogen says that they are here at the request of the Voice of the Tempest, and she is waiting for them. Persuasion check of 21, the Bastion says that it's crowded, but he is well aware that the Tempest is here. Orm says to point them towards the temple of the Platinum Dragon, and the Bastion looks over the group. He whistles for the gate to be open and tells them how to get to the temple. He points The gate opens and the party sees a very old and majestic city of Vasselheim. They see going up the mountain path within the city sits a temple with a bit of glowing light coming from within. The Bastion points to it. Orm asks about the smell, and the Bastion says that they had an issue with the dark bloom recently. The party then realize that they are not just looking at a mountain pass, but in fact two separate things. There's the mountain, but in front of it is a massive humanoid stone figure, a stone titan in the middle of the city, and there are holes throughout with torch lights coming from within. It seems people have moved into this massive titan. The party move into the city and they can see hanging cages with Vanguard soldiers inside. All of them are dead, very dead. They begin to make their way towards the Platinum Sanctuary. Imogen grabs Essek and in his head thanks him for all the help that they did with Laudna. Essek says that it wasn't out of the kindness of his own heart, he's trying to work off the guilt in his heart. He thanks them for being the bastions of guilt or of good that they are. Imogen doesn't know what he did in his past, but she's grateful it brought them here, to them. As they walk through the city, they can see the Titan. They see the city have definitely started to move into it and add to it. They walk underneath its foot, and see construction still going on. There is mining, all sorts of different stuff happening within this Titan. Some of the party know exactly what this is. It is part of the Whispered One's plot 30 odd years ago, and he was stopped by Vox Machina, of which Keyleth was a part of them. The Titan was risen by the Whispered One and left as a reminder. Eventually, they reach a region called the Dusk Meadow. It's a much quieter area here. The party eventually see a massive Gothic cathedral standing over the rest of the homes here, and as they get closer, a bunch of ravens scatter away from it. This is definitely the Temple of the Raven Queen. The smell is getting stronger as they move deeper into the city, and they eventually find pits with numerous undead being burned. Chetney asks one of the guards on duty here what happened. He says that this was the dark bloom. It happened during the solstice. They keep many of their dead throughout history in the catacombs, and they all woke up at once. Orm asks if the Titan did anything during this time, and the guard says no. Thank God, no. That would have been a nightmare. Damn right it would have been. The guard says if they see anything that shouldn't be walking around, to tell the guards. They were able to seal them away for now, but there's no telling how many undead there are. They ask if he knows what caused it to happen, and he says he's not in a high enough station to truly know the truth. They leave the Dusk Meadows and pass through the quad roads. They see a bunch of people being handed out food, and a lot of them are very much injured. A bunch of people from different nations. These people are those who fled from their former encampment and many other encampments. They pass through the crowd into the Silver Talon's Reach, which is another area of the city. Here they see many symbols of the Platinum Dragon as they walk. They feel the fear in the air, but they can also feel that this place believes in their faith is going to be guiding them toward tomorrow. They eventually reach a massive silver gate, and behind it is a large staircase going up the Heaven Stair Mountain. Imogen takes a form of Havoc, and she begins to lift off the ground a bit, and static comes from her and her eyes glow. They step up to the gate, and the Bastions tell them they're not allowed. There is a council meeting going on. Orm says that they're waiting for the Tempest, or the Tempest is waiting for them. A soldier rushes out from behind the gate, wearing armor from Jushar. He tells them to let the bells through, and the Bastions listen to him. The party see familiar faces from their encampment as they begin to walk up the stairs. They start heading up the stairs, and about 20 soldiers flank behind them. They walk up and take in the view of the city. The first city built by the guidance of the gods. They see the area surrounding the city as well, and the mountain range that goes way beyond the forest. They are still only about waist high of the Titan, which is insane. They look down and see the lights throughout the city, and they can also see a very lush part of the city. This is definitely the Temple of the Wild Mother. Ashton is having a hard time being here after what he saw. He calls it madness. The path curves up into a base of a very massive structure that looks to be made out of marble and has massive pillars. Soldiers gather around the outside of this place with flags and tents for all different nations. Essek freezes and falls back, and he says this is likely where their journey together ends, as he sees the Kryn Dynasty flag. He says it's been an honor, but this isn't the last time they'll meet, but he must leave for now. They thank him for the help, and he walks back down the path. The party step into the sanctuary and hear the echo of a strong argument going on. They can't make out any words throughout this echo. It seems to be very, very much an open space here if they can't even hear the words. Orm leads the way on Fern's shoulders, and suddenly a heavy hand grabs onto Fern, and a very deep voice asks who they think they are, and they turn and see a half-giant looking down at them. He is covered with tattoos and has a gray beard. He asks if they were invited, and Orm says the voice of the Tempest asked for them to come here. He says that he's close to the Tempest and doesn't know who they are, and he was told to remove anyone making problems. A smaller voice tells him to wait, and it's Pike. She tells Grog that she knows who they are, and he tells her that he didn't know that. He then turns to them and says, bidet. Grog has a little gut going on for him. It's a little bit hanging over the belt of dwarven kind. Pike asks for his help, and then Grog yells for everyone to move, and the crowd begins to step aside, and everyone begins to look at the Bell's Hells. The party see a lowered forum chamber. It's very much overcrowded right now with people each respecting different places from all over. There's a high elf sitting in the highest chair, clearly representing the sanctuary. There's a man in red. It's Earthbreaker Grun. There's a half elven woman with white and gold hair, with leaf-covered robes. She is clearly representing the Wild Mother in this moment. There are many seats for the top representatives of each temple. In the matron's seat, there are 3 women in black robes. There's not just one seat, there's 3 seats. In another chair is a gender-fluid, dark-skinned, long black-haired elf, and their eyes burn like coal. This is Germain Saord, the ruler of Ank'Harel. There is a figure dressed in white and silver robes with shoulder armor that seems to curl up at the edge, and she has a crown with 3 curves that curve back behind her head. She is a dark elf. This is the Bright Queen, Leilas Kryn. They also see Allura and Kima. They also see the King and Queen of Uthadurn, and they can now notice that this is a gathering of Exandria. Grog makes space for the party to sort of move forward, and in this moment, all of Exandria is now looking at the Bell's Hells, and this is where the session ends. So there you have it, episode 103 of Campaign 3 of Critical Role. This was an awesome episode. I loved it. This is a episode that I can't wait to see get animated for when they eventually animate Campaign 3, if they eventually animate Campaign 3. This entire room filled with super important people, and then all of them looking at what they've been saying the entire campaign is a bunch of goofballs doing, like, you know, the important work, right? Like, they're a bunch of goofballs, the Bell's House. Everyone is now looking at them, and I'm very excited for this scene to play out. I'm dreading next week because there's going to be a lot of people talking and a lot of people making very good points, I'm sure. So there's going to be a lot going on next week, and I am both looking forward to it and dreading it at the same time. I do love that this episode reintroduces Grog. I love Grog. I've missed him for a very long time. Need to see the big dumb boy again. Very excited that he's back. I actually brought a tear to my eye once I realized who it was he was talking about, so that was very cool for me. Grog is probably either my favorite member of Vox Machina or my second favorite behind Percy. So for me, having Grog finally appear is nice, and it means Travis now has a character who has shown up. So now we're just waiting for Sam to have a character to show up in Campaign 3. But super fun episode. Also, something else to mention, Laudna is now free of Delilah, which is really cool and really badass, and I'm very excited to see where that goes, because now she can just be her own person. And, you know, she has, like, her patron trapped, which is really cool. I like this idea. I think this is the first person who's, like, actually been, like, able to properly twist the power dynamic between a patron and, like, a warlock. Ford technically did something similar, but he cast his warlock patron away and then took another one, whereas she has taken, with the help of the Bell's House and Essek, she has taken control of hers, which I think is really badass and really cool. So yeah, that is episode 103 of Campaign 3 of Critical Role. Next week is going to be a doozy, and I will see you guys on Tuesday for whatever video I make next. Peace.